course, the West has been offshoring manufacturing jobs for quite some time now. And you've probably heard of China referred to as the world's factory. That's because many things we buy are manufactured there, and it's not just cheap stuff anymore either. Besides manufacturing jobs, the offshoring of service and knowledge jobs is becoming more prevalent as well, like data entry, Cambodians digitizing Harvard school papers. I can't remember why, but for some reason the papers couldn't simply be scanned, and the Cambodians involved didn't know English at all, but were taught how to type in English. They set up several quality assurance checks to get rid of the inevitable errors. And the lesson here is that even though the system may be inefficient in terms of involving a lot of people, it can still be cost effective to offshore if you can afford the extra time. Call centers. Have you ever called support for anything? Usually you'll get someone from India, the Philippines, Costa Rica, places like that. Usually it's India. And though their English is native level, some people really have a hard time with the accent. And they're working on that. Some have actually attended classes that teach them to mimic various accents. My own experience is that the accent is better than it was a few years ago, and the people are usually very professional, very patient and courteous, more courteous than I am. Generalists. You can hire someone to do just about anything. You can have them tutor your children. You can even have them apologize to your spouse, maybe send them a gift or something on your behalf. I once paid someone in India to research my competitors for me. I could have easily done it myself, but it would have taken a day or two. Instead, I created a spreadsheet where I filled in the row for the first competitor and asked them to do the same thing for all the other competitors. And because it was a simple, straightforward, and clear task, the result that I received back was very good. I paid $50 for that and saved a day or two of my own time, which was a good trade-off for me. And of course, people are increasingly offshoring development, programmers, engineers, IT services, those sorts of things. Shifting or at least sharing that work with their sites in other countries. And that process is hastened as companies demand more work from their domestic resources, where hiring is often frozen while allowing hiring at the foreign sites. Here are a few more examples of offshoring. A lot of research happens in other countries. Drug companies can complete trials more quickly and cheaply overseas, for example, because they can access more people at lower wages, and there's not as many rules governing those kinds of activities in other countries. There's a lot less red tape. And of course, you can get help with your personal research projects, like I mentioned earlier. If there's anything that you need to research and you don't have the time, you can go out to sites like elance.com and you can pay someone to do the research. And if the results are not acceptable, you don't have to pay. Analysts, another category of things that are being offshored. X-rays, other medical types of things, especially if it's after hours here, are often interpreted by specialists overseas. Accounting and finance, a lot of companies are sending their accounting and finance functions over to India. And one of the more interesting things that I read about was an experiment that McDonald's did. You know, when you pull up to the fast food place and you put your order in, usually there's someone inside taking your order. In this experiment, the person was not inside that building. They were in a completely different country, and they claimed to have good results. Personally, I'm waiting for the day when you pull up to the drive-through window, and somewhere on a screen inside your car, there are buttons that you press yourself, and you cut out the middleman altogether, and you don't have to deal with crazy speakers and microphones. So why do companies offshore? Of course, the number one reason is to reduce costs. However, a study of 104 large and small companies revealed these additional reasons, which are listed in order of importance. Growth strategy. Hiring in other countries increases your presence and often your market in those countries. For some people in the U.S., it's much easier to buy a Toyota when you know it was assembled locally. Same goes for products U.S. companies sell to other countries. Competitive pressure. This is the old, everyone else is doing it and they're killing us in the market. If we want to compete, then we'll have to do it too. Or we'll have to get real creative on how to compensate in some other way. And you can probably guess which strategy is chosen more often. Gaining access to qualified personnel. You may have heard about the H-1B visa controversy. Companies use this special type of visa to temporarily hire people from overseas who have specialty skills. Often temporary eventually becomes permanent. Companies say this is necessary because there aren't enough local people with these skills which they must have in order to compete or grow. However, some groups argue that the skills can be found here, it's just that they cost more than companies want to pay. Industry practice. This one is related to competitive pressure. If China has become the de facto maker of a certain auto part and you are an automaker, or are you going to invest in your own alternate system for making that part, or are you just going to do what the other companies do? Improved levels of service. This is especially applicable to functions like support, where you can often call any time to get help. During the day, you may get a local person, while at night you may get someone in another country. Increased speed to market. More resources, when managed well, usually means faster time to market, and offshoring enables companies to hire more resources. Also, if those resources are in the country where your market is located, that helps greatly to pave the way with the local political process, getting permits and such. System redundancy. A problem with resources or infrastructure or communications in one place doesn't have to bring your system down if you have redundancy in several countries. Business process redesign. When companies are redoing their processes nowadays, offshoring is often seen as just another tool that they can use to optimize certain steps. Let's do this in country X, which will free up our people to work more on this higher value add activity, and so forth. And finally, changing the rules of the game. Some companies offshore to change the game in a way that gives them an advantage. Perhaps they've figured out how to apply offshoring in some way that their competitors either don't or can't.